We do want to do a little bit of that today. This is on page 1705. And for your final, we will have a final. We could do it.
Can we do like?
Well, what I'm suggesting, because we do have to get this thing graded and turned around really fast, so we will have. It will not be a difficult final. You do need to know the things that you need to know for the final. The best thing to do is to know the titles and the authors, just like you did on that first one, right?
Of all the stuff we read?
No, just from that first exam forward. And this is for the folks online as well. Just know the titles and the authors, so that if I give you something that would probably not be that difficult, I mean, it's probably, how obvious were the ones on the last one? They were pretty obvious.
If you read.
If you had read and listened and highlighted in class, that sort of thing.
Are we gonna have a review? I think that review.
Yeah, that one.
We'll
do one of those.
We'll have a review. We will have a review, and it'll be a shorter kind of thing. It won't be. I mean, I don't think it'll be that difficult, because now you've been through one exam and you know what kinds of things we're looking for. And I'll try to pick things that are representative, because I think we had pretty good scores on the first exam. I think so, if I remember correctly. I wasn't horrified. Actually, it's so it'll be kind of one-word answers, but the things that. Oh yeah, they were mostly A's and B's on the first one. So it shouldn't. This one should not even be as hard as that one. But
It's next Friday, right?
it'll be next Friday during class time. And so by also that gives you a little bit of, escape room if you need it for finals week, because if you suddenly realize, you realize, my goodness, I never wrote a research paper. You can go and fix that the next week, which that wouldn't happen, because I think I've got one from everybody. But this way, it kind of gives you a little bit of escape room and all that. So it'll be next Friday during class. Today we need to talk about the second coming. And this is on page 1705. And it is by William Butler Yeats, Y-E-A-T-S. And it's pronounced Yeats, not Yeats, although I don't know why Yeats is Yeats and Yeats is Yeats. Irish as opposed to English, I suppose. Now, as I keep warning you about all the poets that we read, we keep getting all this Christian imagery, right? We keep getting lots of Christian imagery. We got the lamb and the tiger by Blake. Blake was not a Christian. Then we get Dickinson talking about waiting for the king. And we're not real sure if Dickinson's a Christian. Maybe she is, maybe she's not. It's not real clear what she believes, because she's asking so many questions.
Is it bad to ask questions?
Pardon?
But is it wrong to ask questions?
No, because that's what the great poets do. They ask those questions that make us. Pardon?
So she could have been a Christian.
She could have been a Christian. It's just that we don't know, so we don't want to
Analyze.
Right, we don't want to overread Christianity into her poem, or into her poems. With Yeats, we are not dealing with a Christian. He was raised as an atheist. He is Irish at a time when, if you remember, a modest proposal, the English and the Irish don't get along. If you look at some of the other, like Easter 1916, you might want to think about Easter Sunday 1916. Shh, over there. They can hear. It's like really hard to hear, and it's hard for me to hear too. Okay, so on Easter Sunday 1916, Irish nationalists began an unsuccessful rebellion against British rule, which lasted throughout the week and ended in the surrender and execution of its leaders. It was a bloody time. And Yeats is trying to become an Irish national poet. Do you know what it means to be an Irish nationalist, or what it it means to be a nationalist. It's on the news all the time about something nationalist.
what's best for your country.
Yeah, you're fighting for your country as opposed to your continent, or you're fighting for your country instead of your kind of, I mean, think about remember rape at the lock and all of that? What did Britain do? What did Britain do that was that Pope was reacting against in the rape of the lock? And
The English language, are you talking about our proposal?
no, I'm talking about the rape of the lock, with, like the tortoise and the elephant unite. And Voltaire, about, this is the price of the sugar you eat. What was England doing in the world, all over the world?
Control. Like there was like territories everywhere. The
Colonizing.
sun never set.
They were planting colonies all over the place, right? So we have other countries that are doing that at the same time as well. We have colonialism, and the thing is, if you're colonized, if you're the country that gets colonized, it's not necessarily a pleasant thing. I mean, how would we like it if suddenly, I don't know, Brazil said we belong to them? I mean, they've got Rio, that would be fun. But do we really want to all speak Portuguese this afternoon? No. Okay. So, see? Okay. So, think about this. That nationalism is a national pride. It's the idea that the Germans want to be different from the Italians, who want to be different from the French, who want to be different from the English and the Irish really don't want to be English, okay? And so he's saying here in the Easter 1916, it's talking about when the Irish want to stand up and say, look, get away from us. The Irish nationalist movement tries to preserve things like Gaelic. They want to speak their own language. They want to have autonomy. They want to have their own rule and that sort of thing. Well, we also get the fact that this is 1916. What's going on at about this time all over the world? Remember, we've talked about that also. We're dealing with modern poetry here. So what's going on in the world? Wars. Well, here, yeah, we've got some revolutionary activity, yes. World War I, revolutionary activity, what?
Wait, what is this?
Between 1914 1918, we've been talking about what's the flu epidemic. All of these terrible things. We have this crisis. Now, Yeats is setting out, he's got a plan. Okay? Number one, he wants to be an Irish nationalist poet. Think about who is the poet of Greece? Homer? Okay. Who is the poet of Italy? Thank you. Dante. Dante is writing in Italy in the 1200s. Most of the poetry would still be written not in Italian, in Latin. But what does he do? He says, I'm writing in Italian to celebrate Italy. Okay? So Homer gives us Greek, Virgil gives us Latin. He is the poet of Rome. We get Dante. Shakespeare and Milton are the poets of England. They write in their native language, right? Now, they also, what's the same in Homer and Virgil, but they've got different names?
The gods.
The gods, yes. You have the Greek gods who get translated then into the Roman gods. You've got to have that. Remember in the epic elements, Brennan knows this because she put it in her paper, when you've got an epic, one of those things is you've got to have these supernatural beings, right? You've got to have the gods. So, Homer gives us the Greek gods, Virgil gives us the Roman gods. Dante, who do we get? God, the Christian God. Milton, who do we get? Paradise Lost. Where are we? in Paradise Lost, where would we?
Oh, the Garden of Eden.
Thank you, we're in the Garden of Eden. Yes, this is a Christian school, and Milton is our Protestant poet here. Please. So, what does Yeats need for his poetry? He needs supernatural machinery. He needs the gods. But it's 1916 or 1918. Where do you get God? And he was raised an atheist. Yates is a weird guy. Really weird. He would go out into the moors and he would have seances. I'm not kidding. The guy creeps me out. He really does. He's scared. I did a paper on him in graduate school and he's really creepy. He went out and had seances. He would try to call up the Celtic gods. I'm not kidding. He would do this. But then eventually, but why would he do this?
I guess it was like he didn't have a God, so he made it.
Exactly. He doesn't have a God.
That's
So
how it works.
he's looking for something transcendent. The same sort of thing that Eliot is doing when he says, oh, they're going and talking about Michelangelo and it's all so superficial and it's just flat. We need depth. We need some kind of meaning to explain why people blast each other, why people blow each other up. And then what does it mean that, part of your family dies, a huge part of your family dies in that flu epidemic. You need something beyond a scientific principle to explain all that. And so he's searching for God, personally, I think. And he says to draw a nation together, it needs something transcendent. It needs a transcendent meaning, purpose, whatever. So he starts going out and trying to call up the Celtic gods, and he has seances with his friends and all this kind of stuff. He also tries to preserve Gaelic as a language. He writes plays, and he writes this poetry. Now, the second coming then, and I'm telling you all this to point out that he's not Christian, but he is part of the Western world, the Judeo-Christian world, so he knows Christian imagery. And we get turning and turning, and this is page 1705, turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Anarchy is loosed upon the world. Turning and turning in the widening gyre. What is a gyre?
It's a cone pattern of the falcon's flight and historical cycles.
Yes, the footnote says the cone pattern of the falcon's flight and of historical cycles in Yeats' vision. What? Okay, a falcon, right? Turning and turning in the widening gyre. Here's more of my stick people. Lovely.